Well, when I was 5, at my old house, I remember getting up around 5 a.m. one Saturday morning because I was a little kid and wanted to watch TV. So I go into the basement alone. It's a thunderstorm outside. So I'm watching some television. All of a sudden the power goes out. Pitch fucking black in the basement. But my eyes adjusted after a bit. So I'm sitting there, pretty scared on the couch, when I hear something softly walk down the stairs. Obviously, I assume it's my mom. And I see it walk out, wearing a red gown, just like my mom had. In the darkness, it looked like my mom for the most part. And it walked across the hall towards the computer room door. I called out, "Mom!" And its head turned towards me. But it kept walking and went into the computer room. So I was like, okay, Mom just went into the computer room. I go in there. Nobody is in there. Connected to the computer room, at the very back corner of the basement, was the boiler room. I assumed she went in there for some reason, so I went in. I couldn't find her, so I kept calling her name. She heard me from upstairs and called me up. So I ran upstairs, and there she was. Never in my life have I had such a chilling paranormal experience. As I thought of this, my eyes watered up in fear, reminiscing on the memory. Definitely horrifying for me. So this happened to me last year in October. I needed groceries, so I went to the supermarket. It was a fairly large store. Anyway, I was going around picking up things that I needed, and occasionally looking at other things that interested me. I remember being in the canned food area when I noticed a man look at me from my peripheral vision. He was around 6'2", and of muscular build. I really didn't think much of it, and dismissed it as him looking at other stuff that was placed in front of me. I continued to pick up stuff and left the aisle. I could have sworn he was following me, but I wasn't bothered. I was in a supermarket with loads of people inside. At daytime. He wouldn't even have tried to do anything. As I went through more stuff in the store, I noticed he literally came wherever I went. I was feeling really uneasy by then. I got my phone out of my pocket. It was one of the candy bar phones that had the useful fake call feature. So I pressed the fake call button and pretended I was on the phone. I walked off to the checkout area and was relieved to see him not there. I rushed out of the store when I noticed someone beside my car. It was the same man. He was bent down, staring inside my car. At this point, I started to panic, often turning to people for help. No one would help me. I went back inside and told one of the men that was standing there. He agreed to check to see if anyone was there. When he came back, he said he checked, but there wasn't anyone near my car. I thanked him and left the store before he came back. As I was pulling out of the parking lot, a man started knocking on the driver's side window. I sped out of the parking lot, not caring if I broke any traffic laws. This was stupid, I know. I was thinking about what just happened when something caught my eye. It was the same man. He was ducking down, staring at me, like I didn't know. My heart sunk. It felt like the whole world turned around, and I felt sick to my stomach. Despite feeling like that, I decided to play calm and drive to an area where there was a lot of people. I didn't look back, but once, when I looked back for a few seconds, I could see something in his hand. It was shiny. When I got to a street where there were a few people walking around, I opened my car door casually and started running the hell out of the car. I could hear my door open behind me, but I was too shocked to look back. I didn't realize I left the keys in the car. After running to the other side of the street, I found a couple. I told them what had just happened, and they called the police for me. When they came, the car wasn't there. I gave them full details of what happened. A few days later, they contacted me and told me they had found my car abandoned on a highway. Needless to say, I didn't step back into the car. What still troubles me is, he had the guts to do this at daytime, with so many people around. What would he do at night? And if those people weren't there that day, I don't know what could have happened to me. And who was that man banging on my window? Was he trying to warn me? Or was he an accomplice of the creepy man from the supermarket? Anyway, creepy supermarket guy? Let's not meet. Ever. Ever. I was home alone during the day of May 24, 2007. It was around 3 o'clock, and I had an hour before I had to leave to go to work. I played on the computer for about 20 minutes more. Then I got up to take a shower. My bathroom has this large, unusual window for a bathroom, but it's on the second story, so it's usually fine. Except for this time. I took all my clothes off, turned the shower on, and then I realized there was someone walking in circles in the tall grass where the house's property ends. Normally I wouldn't make such a big deal about this, but I live way out in the boondocks. I don't have a single neighbor for at least a mile. I watched him for about a minute. He was just continuously walking in circles until he noticed me. He fell to knees, started hitting his hands on the ground for a few seconds, and then took off. And I don't mean he started running. He literally sprinted full speed into the woods. I was weirded out, but I got in the shower anyways. I got ready and walked to work, looking over my shoulder every few seconds to see if the man was in sight. But I didn't see him. I want you to know right now that I'm only 15 and that I work as a dishwasher or cook at a catfish restaurant. And most of the people who work there are awkward and don't talk the entire time. The only person there who I talk to that also works there is my girlfriend, Bailey. Like usual, the entire 6 hours I was there was almost completely silent, other than Bailey, who was a waitress, read off the orders, and the occasional quiet conversations of customers. It was 9:35, so me and Bailey were about ready to get home. And at 9:40, we clocked out and left. On our way home, we were talking, and she asked if she could stay at my house, because coincidentally, she was going to be home alone too. Of course I said yes, and she came to my home with me. We got to my house, watched TV on the couch for about 30 minutes, and went to bed. Although I was 15 years old, I was mature enough to make her sleep on the couch by the window, while I slept in my bed. She woke me up at about 11:30 saying that she was too scared to sleep by the window. I told her that nothing was going to happen, but she nearly started crying trying to persuade me. And obviously at this point, I let her sleep in my bed with me. She got really close to my side, getting as much of her under the covers as she could. I went about 10 minutes with her in silence, wondering why she was so scared. She turned onto her side, causing me to realize that she was still awake. So I asked, "What scared you so much?" She told me nothing happened. I was just seeing things. So I asked her what she saw, and what she told me almost made me faint. Bailey told me she saw a guy walking around in circles on the front porch. I immediately jumped up and ran to the window to look, and surely enough, there was the same man I had seen earlier, walking in circles. Unfortunately, when I got to the window, I bumped my hand by accident, and he heard it. He stopped and stared into my eyes for about 5 seconds, and then immediately ran towards the door and started beating on it, trying to get in. At that point, my Bailey was well aware of what was going on, and she screamed and started crying, which didn't really surprise me. My door was made of metal, so I didn't expect him to get in anytime soon. So I ran to Bailey, who was in the corner of my bed crying, and calmed her down. I grabbed her phone and called the police. They said they were sending an officer to take care of it. I hung up. I grabbed my knife from under my bed that I had just in case anything like this ever happened. But about 5 minutes later, the banging stopped. We both calmed down and sat there quiet for a few seconds. But that was quickly interrupted. We heard one of the windows shatter downstairs. She started crying again. I jumped up and helped her under the bed, where I told her not to make a single sound. And then I got in the closet right beside the bed. I then very soon started hearing the sound of someone slowly walking up the stairs, along with the quiet sound of Bailey crying. But she stopped when the man got to the top of the stairs and opened the door. He slowly walked around the room, almost like he couldn't see. He got to the bed that Bailey was under and stopped. He stood there for about 15 seconds, which I'm sure scared the living hell out of her, until she screamed as loud as I've ever heard her scream. I quickly jumped out of the closet, only to see the man, who was no taller than me and as pale as the pillow on my bed, staring at her under the bed. She was screaming at the man at this point. When I ran to the man with the knife, I stabbed it into his lower back, and he let out a painful scream and fell onto the ground. That was when I heard the best sound I think I've ever heard: police sirens. I quickly grabbed Bailey and ran out of the house while the man laid there on the ground making agonizing noises as he attempted to take the knife out of his back. We got outside and waved our hands to the cops, signaling them down to us to hurry. They pulled up, got out of the car, and ran inside the house. There were 3 of them. In a quick minute, I heard the sound of 1, 2, 3 gunshots. The cops then came out of the house, carrying what looked like the man to their car. He was dead. They called an ambulance to pick him up, but when they got there, they declared him dead. I am now 23, and me and Bailey are married. The only thing I can do is imagine what would have happened to us if I wouldn't have had that knife.